Meanwhile, Brian was just talking about Saturday Night Live. Kathleen Sebelius was parodied on their program. But yesterday she had the chance to set the record straight. She sat down before the Senate Finance Committee because they had a whole bunch of questions why that website doesn't work and why the President of the United States promised a couple of times you could keep your health insurance if you liked it, and that was not true. Senator Bill Nelson, a Democrat from Florida, said to her about the contractors responsible for the website, he said, quote, "I want you to burn their fingers and make them pay for not being responsible."
Well, she's not really responsible because she's managing it. And she looked over him the whole entire time. He had 2.5 years to see they were behind, and they weren't hitting their marks, and they certainly weren't ready October 1st. She spent the entire time, number one, trying to further define the president's statement, if you want your plan, you can keep your plan, which both Democrats and Republicans are realizing was a total falsehood. She was also being prodded to delay. And what happened each time, Elizabeth, she was asked about delay? She flat out denied there will ever be a delay, even though Democrats, including Max Baucus, are calling for a delay.
So not only are we finding out that you can't keep the doctor in the plan that you thought you could, but we also found something out yesterday that was so disturbing, okay? Senator John Cornyn of Texas asks her about the navigators and whether or not they get a background check. These are the people that are receiving, those that can log on and put their information, all of your vital information, statistical information, financial information, going into the system in the hands of the navigators, and let's see who they could possibly be. Listen to her answer. Shocking.
Isn't it true that there is no federal requirement for navigators to undergo a criminal background check, even though they will receive sensitive personal information from the individuals they help sign up for the Affordable Care Act?
That is true. States could add an additional background checks and other features, but it is not part of the federal requirement.
So a convicted felon could be a navigator and could acquire sensitive personal information from an individual unbeknownst to them.
That is possible.
Okay, regarding your private and personal information, it's interesting because finally somebody, it sounds like, is getting squeezed out. The fella is the Chief Information Officer for CMS, Center of Medicare and Medicaid Services. His name is Tony Trinkle. According to the Washington Post, he was in charge of determining whether private information entered into the exchange system would be safe from hackers and identity thieves, and an Inspector General report released in August said that CMS had delayed the deadline for making that decision until the eve of the site's launch. And as you know, it launched, and it did not work right.
Well, I have a different take. My hunch is that if they really wanted him out, they would have trumpeted it, because everybody's calling for someone to be fired.
Anything's the matter with it.
They want to call some. They know everybody knows something's the matter with it. So for him to leave, evidently that story goes on to say he did not sign off and say the site was ready, and it went up anyway. So he decides, I think he decides on some level, I don't want any part of this.
Well, you know, certainly I think Americans are asking for accountability, but when you go back to Sebelius' answer about not having the feature to do a background check on the person that you're requiring us to hand our information over to, seems absurd. I mean, people are going wild about this, and certainly why so many Democrats went to talk to the president yesterday, because those that perhaps might not be voting for them in the 2004 elections are losing it over the fact that, A, the system's not working, B, on a convicted felon could be having their information in their hands, and they want some answers, and now they're kind of turning
the next big deadline, the end of this month. They put it on themselves. There's no indication from yesterday's testimony that anyone's even optimistic it's going to be ready at the end of the month.
Just one other note, the President of the United States flew to Dallas late yesterday afternoon after he had a meeting with about 16 congressional Democrats. They are starting to freak out. They look at what happened in the Commonwealth of Virginia and how Cuccinelli almost caught up to the extremely well-funded Terry McAuliffe, and they're going, this Obamacare thing is a catastrophe for us. And the president said, okay, we're working on it.
Right, that was supposed to be a slam dunk.
Yep.